see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face.
Oh, I'm from Brooklyn.
Hey, guys, any...
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
What's up, everybody? It's another episode of Coast to Coast, and I am your host, Pags. I am here with Bo. McLovin will be here whenever he decides to show up. You know, sometimes he's early, sometimes he's late, sometimes it's, it doesn't matter. Anyways, you know what? I have to start with this. I'm not even going to ask you how you're doing because I got to start with this right away because it just baffles my mind.
Sure.
The Milwaukee Bucks are hiring Doc Rivers.
Yep.
What happened to their coach?
I don't know. It's funny. I didn't realize that he was in danger of being fired.
Or I hadn't even heard that he got fired. And when I went to go take a look for it, I can't find it.
Yeah, it was weird because I saw that pop across my feed this morning and I hadn't heard anything about there being an issue. And then all of a sudden I just see, oh, Doc Rivers has been hired. I was like, wow, what happened there? And I haven't really been able to find anything that indicates why there was a coaching change.
Me neither. So I like I said, I went looking for it. I went back into stories. I check the news usually about 15, 20 minutes before we start this show. I like to be off the cuff. You know what I mean? I tend to work better when there isn't a plan. As funny as that sounds. So I go to look at this and I'm like, okay. So I didn't go do a deep dive into, hey, when did Griffin get fired? Is Griffin even fired? Does he have a health situation going on or what have you? All of which I can't find anything. So, hey, listen, the Bucks hiring Doc Rivers as their new coach. Good for them. I wish that he stays over there in Milwaukee for as long as Giannis is there, because that means they aren't going anywhere. I know firsthand how bad of a coach I feel Doc Rivers is.
Yeah.
So I feel like that he was a good player. And I know that he's won one ring with the team that I probably coaching could have won a ring with. So now, all you got to do is be like, hey guys, go out there and play some basketball.
That's right.
Dribble, pass, shoot. Yes, that's it. That's all you would have needed. And they would have all won. They would have won that shit. So I don't look at him as a very good coach. That being said, this was a surprise. I mean, obviously, I didn't even realize that the Bucks were in the market for a coach.
Yeah, especially because it's not like they were off to a bad start, right? It's why I'm confused as to what happened. I mean, clearly something major had to have happened.
Well, I mean, they still are the number 2 seed. They're half a game up on the Sixers.
Mm-hmm.
I think when it's the divisions, they're number 1 in their division by 3 games. So it's not like that. I got to imagine that in comparison to last year, it is a little different. That they probably started out stronger last year. Actually, from what I remember, I think they didn't start out stronger last year. That they had to come on. They usually have slower starts in Milwaukee. I mean, not necessarily when I mean slower starts, I don't mean like anything major. They still wind up in first place, start from wire to wire, but that they don't they're not as dominant until later in the season.
Sure.
So this is a surprise. It's just a surprise, and I'm surprised at all of this. Here it is. 14 hours ago, Bucks had no choice but to fire Adrian Griffin. Interesting. Might have looked fine, but internally it was a mess under its rookie head coach.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I was just seeing stats on, as far as how far the defense has fallen off, stuff like that. But, defensive efficiency, they went from 4th to 22nd, points per pick, 3rd to 24th, points direct drive, 2nd to 20th. So, I mean, none of those are good defensive stats, although they're still winning games. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know what? You start the season, what were they, 30-13? Yeah. So
they're 30-13 right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. That seems like an odd firing, but I mean, I guess if it's a chemistry thing, you got to protect the team. So I guess you do what you do.
Well, I mean, I got to imagine, and maybe it's just me. You got a rookie head coach. You make a big trade right before the season begins for Damian Lillard. Now, all of a sudden, you've got another monster ego along with Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
And you traded away all your defense for Damian Lillard.
Exactly.
And expect them to have a good defense.
Yeah.
And then say, well, the coach wasn't doing what he was doing and he was upsetting his players. Okay.
Yeah.
He's probably saying, hey, guys, cover somebody. Put your hands up in the air.
Get in the way.
I gotta listen to that guy. You know what I mean? Why do I gotta listen to this guy? You know what I mean? That's
right.
I can imagine like that's some of I mean, I don't know. I've never been a professional basketball player, so I'm not going to say like I understand some of the inner politics that occur with this. However, you got a team that's going to contend for the title. How tough is it really? You make some plays up. Hey, listen, I want this guy to go here, this guy to go here, this guy to go here. We all do that at the same time. We pass the ball, we score a point. You know,
it's pretty basic.
I know I'm easing this in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's an oversimplification, but I mean, at the same time, Doc Rivers might be gifted another ring. How about that? Good on him.
You know what? I'd be willing to bet that that's not going to be the case. In fact, I now hope that the Sixers play the Bucks in the second round of the playoffs.
All right.
Because I feel that Doc Rivers will do exactly what Doc Rivers does. Get out to a 3-1 lead and blow it in 7 games.
Yeah.
That's a Doc Rivers stat. He loves to get out to major leads and playoff series and poop the bed.
Yeah. I mean.
So, yeah. I mean, I tell you, but I had to start off with that. I had to start off with it. It just was too much going on with that. I'm like, Doc Rivers, more of a Philly thing and stuff like that. So, I just like let's go right from there. I wish him the best of luck. No. All right. Back to NFL, where we actually do most of our bread and butter, because I'm going to wait to talk about who was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame when Jay gets here.
Absolutely.
So we might as well get him riled up right off the bat.
Of course. Of course.
So Joe Barry not returning, defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right? Is another kind of surprise firing.
Like, I got to imagine that there may have had to be a little bit contentions with him and LaFleur. That's what caused this. I mean, it wasn't the defense that stopped them from I mean, winning these games. You know what I mean? I
No,
guess at the very end, maybe they didn't make that stop, and that stop is what cost him his job. But
yeah, but then you could say missed opportunities would have outweighed that one stop you couldn't make. So I mean, I don't know if that would have cost him his job. This is another one where I think it had to be, personality type issues, because when you look at how Green Bay played, especially in the second half of the season, yeah, the offense woke up, but the defense played better also. So I mean, that whole team started coming together as the year went on. So yeah, this feels like similar to the first firing we were talking about. There had to be some personality clashes.
I that's and it's here right from LaFleur. He says these decisions are extremely difficult, and Joe is one of the best men I've had the opportunity to work with in this league. That means, when I'm reading between those lines, I can't stand this guy. Somebody else take him.
Yep. Yeah, he's decent at his job and he should do it somewhere else.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, because listen, he had the unit ranked 10th in points this year.
Yep.
That they had 9 games under 20 points, but 17th in yardage. That's not crazy. You know what I mean?
Not
It's just,
horrible,
I mean,
especially when you figure they were playing against the Lions twice, who are, what, they were top 2 passing offense, and they were
scoring points left and right, and then
yeah,
they had the first place schedule, so they had to play uh, different teams and such. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Or was it first place or was the Vikings first place? I don't remember. No, the Vikings didn't make the playoffs last year. The Green Bay was in the playoffs last year, was they not?
No, Green Bay missed. The
So it
Lions
was
helped them out last year.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but
So
so like just going up against the Lions, right? The Lions were 5th in scoring, 2nd in passing, 5th in rushing, 3rd in touchdowns, right? You got to face them twice. Like, you knew you were going to get lit up a couple of times by them. The Vikings weren't exactly terrible, even though they had the, rotating quarterback situation. I mean, you were going to give up points and yardage. I mean, that was just going to happen.
so hey, listen, I'm surprised that he's out. I feel that's just another guy that the Eagles could talk to. Because I feel that, obviously he did okay. They made the playoffs 3 years ago. I mean, or
Yep.
2 years ago before this. Didn't make it last year on a last minute, Detroit team who needed Seattle to lose that game to not to make the playoffs.
Mhm.
And even when Seattle won that game, still came to play.
Yep.
And knocked Green Bay, played spoiler for Green Bay. And then, of course, Green Bay makes it back into the playoffs again this year when their offense was the soft part.
Yep.
So, I mean, really, because they were hurt most of the season with at the running back position. And as you could tell in the playoffs, the running back position made Green Bay a much different team.
Yep.
In theory, they could have, you take that one pass away and um, it might have been something different. You know what I mean? Like he didn't throw across his body and have that interception against San Francisco. May have led them down to at least a field goal to tie it up, and then who knows?
Yeah, no,
So,
it would have been a very different game. Absolutely.
I mean, it's just interesting. I find that very interesting. The Raiders hire Tom Telesco as their next general manager.
Oh, okay.
So
Didn't see that
they.
yet.
Yep, that just came out. Well, that came out yesterday. Hired Tom Telesco. The Chargers fired Telesco alongside Brandon Staley in December. So bam. And this guy has got a losing record with the Chargers, so I figure he's the perfect thing for. Yeah, hold on, but you're saying that Barry is an above average DC. Okay, that's not bad. I mean,
Yeah,
it's better than being below average.
absolutely.
So, just found that interesting to do that. So, And the Eagles, they're got people coming in and out. They're interviewing everybody under the sun.
Yep.
This one being Cliff Kingsbury. They're about to talk here any minute now. Unfortunately, I'm here doing this, so I'm not going to be able to see that. I'll have to see it after the fact.
Yep.
But it'll be interesting. I await to hear what is going to come from that. I expect to see some news about the Eagles after this press conference, which I'm not sure what time it happens. I thought it happens maybe at 2 o'clock, so I might be able to catch it. Might happen a little earlier, as they do. I thought they were going to give the head coaching position to Kellen Moore. Who are we talking about? The Raiders?
Or they got to be talking about the Chargers. That was a weird situation because they ended up going with their linebacker coach and, didn't give it to Kellen Moore. I thought Kellen Moore was going to get a shot. Although to be fair, I thought Brandon Staley was going to get fired earlier in the year and give Kellen Moore, almost a half a season to, see if he's that guy. So the fact that they overlooked him and went to the linebacking coach to take over as interim, and the ownership put out that obligatory. It was, it wasn't anything to do with him. It was, we didn't want to distract him, which is hilarious to me because most of your head coaches have been either an OC or a DC, and a lot of them fill both roles. So I'm not really sure what they're talking about there, but it was one of their press releases they released when the announcement came out that Kellen Moore wasn't going to be the interim head coach. And as soon as he wasn't going to be that, you knew he wasn't going to be their permanent head coach. If you don't trust him to finish a season, you're certainly not going to trust him to carry the team moving forward.
Well, and plus, hasn't Kellen Moore, he's not been really sought after. I mean, I guess he was for a minute, and then it was like, hey, he became too predictable. He became too soft. Uh, blah blah blah. I don't understand. Like, it's just like I don't see what the allure is of him.
Well, I mean, with Kellen Moore, he was an OC. They were playing well with, he was scheming stuff up well for Herbert, right? Because they had one of the top yardages and points in the league. They just had a defense that couldn't do anything. So you kind of thought that maybe they'd elevate him into that head coach role and then bringing in a DC, or maybe elevate their linebacker coach to be that interim DC in between. But instead they just kind of did whatever they did and, finished the season horribly. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
and I mean, obviously, his play calling hadn't changed from the Cowboys either.
no, not really. Yeah,
So it was the exact same.
yeah,
And they figured out the Cowboys. I guess they have enough tape on his type of offense to realize that you can beat it.
yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
and I do not believe that Moore will be staying with the Chargers, especially if they get Harbaugh.
No,
There's no
definitely
way Jim Harbaugh comes here. No
No.
way that Jim Harbaugh comes here. And to say that the Eagles front office is dysfunctional, I can't agree with that because they were executive of the year a couple years ago. They went to the Super Bowl last year. You could say whatever you want. Everybody wants to be a fair weather fan and have, oh, well, we could have did this, we could have did this, we could have did this. I tell you, when you've gone to the playoffs 3 years in a row and you were in the Super Bowl last year and you had a down year and you had a little bit of a collapse for whatever reason that is, I can't say all of a sudden, yeah, the front office stinks.
Yeah.
We could be Carolina. That front office stinks. We could be Chicago. That front office stinks.
Yeah.
We could be the Giants. Or the Jets. That front office stinks. Yes, Dominic, you are correct. Screens on 3rd and 20 don't help, but that's an offensive coordinator's position, and
sure.
you don't really change offensive coordinators in the middle of the season because it changes. You ain't winning nothing then, because it's too late in the season to be able to make all those changes. So all that you're saying, once you live and die by a sword of a coordinator. You can maybe change the defensive coordinator. And I think they thought that maybe the change would wake everybody up. It didn't.
Yeah.
Offense, you
Well,
can't do that.
And making the change that you guys did, he was already in-house, so it's not like adding wrinkles was going to be like bringing in a DC that's from outside the building. So I mean, it's not like it was as major a move as, hey, we're firing this guy and we're just going to go hire a random dude. It's, this guy's been in the building, he knows what we run, he's going to add some wrinkles of his own in theory, and you can keep rolling. Yeah. But yeah, with an OC, especially if you're going to do it from outside the building, yeah, you're definitely losing because those playbooks aren't going to be the same.
Right. And it's different terminology. It's a whole different thing. That's the biggest deal. That is what training camp is for. Training camp is only to learn the language that you are speaking moving forward for that year. So when you don't have that, or you have a change, and the only time I can really even express this in any reasonable sense was, again, when John Gruden got traded over to Tampa Bay, and they kept all the same terminology from year to the next coach, and the one guy, because they had to change the terminology at the last minute, they had 2 weeks to learn it all the new terminology, and the one guy went crazy. I mean, that's a real statement. John Gruden brought both of those teams to the Super Bowl.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and whether whoever's calling the plays, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. At that point, you're stuck. Mm-hmm. So if it was Nick calling the plays and he was the one calling those screen and bubble passes and stuff like that, then okay, then that's fine. Obviously, they didn't work.
I mean, to be fair, 3rd and a mile, there's not a lot in the playbook that works anyway. So, I mean, sometimes you do a dive or, some little short pass or a screen or something, and you hope for a missed tackle and yards after catch because the defense is playing back. They know you need 20 yards. And, I mean, they're not going to give you a 20-yard strike, up the seam. They're going to protect that. So, I mean, as much as I don't want to see a bubble screen on 3rd and 20, there's not a lot of success at 3rd and 20.
But also the other thing that I could say about that is that it's not just the Eagles that do it.
No, it's everybody.
It happens fairly frequently. You're trying to get some yards back. You want to get it. Your goal really on a 3rd and 20 is to break a tackle and get within 5 yards, especially if you're between the 40s. Absolutely. You want to, like, if you are 3rd and 20 at your own 40-yard line, you want to get 15 yards. And sometimes you're going to do it, sometimes you're not going to do it. But ultimately, you want to make it 4th and manageable so that if you decide you want to go for it, you can. If you decide that you want to punt, okay, you can make that assessment if you're going to play the field control game. Yep. But that's kind of what it is that I see. And it's not just the Eagles that do this. I've seen it. We've seen it in the playoff games.
Oh, it's every team. It's every team. There's just no playbook that has much on there for 3rd and 20. 3rd and 20 basically says, here's hoping. Like that's 3rd and 20.
Exactly. I fully agree. So I just don't agree there, Dom, in terms of what it is that you're thinking. It's like, I just feel that, hey, listen, we as Philadelphians always go back to the, hey, 4th and 20, we made it on 4th and 26, and again, there's luck that's involved with that. So ultimately it worked and we got that play and we wind up winning that game.
Yep.
Short of that, it doesn't happen very often. No, you're not going to be throwing bombs. Or if you are throwing bombs, the other problem is that you can't have a quarterback back there for 5 seconds and hope he doesn't get a sack.
Exactly. No, I mean, it's a low percentage play. Like it is what it is. Although talking about the Chargers, it was interesting to see that, as per Pro Football Talk, Pete Carroll's thrown his hat in the ring for that coaching job.
I did see that. I did
So
see that.
that would be
You
interesting.
know, and there was. Do you think that they would really take him on?
I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't entertain it. He's going to be significantly cheaper than Harbaugh. He's demonstrated that he wants to coach for the foreseeable future, right? So it's not a 1 or 2 year thing. Like you could probably lock him up for 4 or 5 years if you want. He's a good defensive mind. So I mean, and they have a really expensive defensive roster that just wildly underperformed with the way that Brandon Staley ran it, right? So if you bring Pete Carroll in that scenario, you may even keep Kellen Moore. Who knows? But you bring in Carroll, they bring in a good DC. It could be could be Joe Barry. It seems like he's going to need some work, and then and then you go and you see what you have, because that offense put up points, they put up yards. You needed a competent defense, right? And you look at it as that division isn't as scary as it used to be, right? KC isn't the same team. They got a good defense. Offense hasn't been great. Oakland is kind of a dumpster fire or Las Vegas, I should say, kind of a dumpster fire at the moment. Denver, which I'm sure we'll talk about now that they're walking back this Russell Wilson talk. That's going to be hilarious to watch moving forward. So, I mean, this is a very winnable division for the Chargers if they want to do it. And, a guy like Pete Carroll could kind of help turn the tide on that without spending all the money that you'd have to spend on Harbaugh.
Yeah, but how is the fan base going to react to that? I mean, I guess he's in LA, and I guess he was loved in LA. I mean, USC is there, right?
Absolutely.
That's where he won. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. I mean, he
guess
won a couple of championships there. I think they would welcome him in.
I guess that'd be an interesting thing. Where else could you see him possibly going?
I don't know if he would take one of the other jobs. I think he wants to go somewhere that can win right away. I don't think he wants to go somewhere where he has to build, right? So I don't know if he's too interested in any of the rest of the jobs. I think this one gets him back in Cali. I think that's really the draw here. I don't really see any of the other ones being a fit that he's going to really throw his hat in the ring. But I think this is more of a return home and play kind of thing.
Well, I'd be interested to see if that's what happens with him. I feel that when you sent that over, I was like, I know that he got forced out. He got forced out. There's no way that he's just taking a step back.
Of course. Well, especially when you saw his press conferences. I mean, it was very clear that this was not his doing.
So, and I guess they're like, hey, yeah, we need something. We need a change, and it starts with you. So, I mean, I get it. Any thoughts on who may be the replacement?
Man, they are interviewing everybody. So far, what they've the list they've put out, because I'm actually going to go over this in my Hawk Talk show Friday. But right now, they're going to chat with the Lions OC Ben Johnson. He's done a great job there, right? That's been a top scoring offense for the last couple of years. Obviously, they're going to talk to Dan Quinn just because that's probably the easiest plug and play guy, just because he's been here before, familiar with the culture and all of that. Since the press conference from John Schneider said, hey, we want to keep our culture the way it is and all of that. So, I mean, that's probably the easiest placement, although he does have that issue with kind of coming up short in big games. They're going to talk to the Ravens DC, Mike McDonald. Obviously, that would be huge because this defense has been kind of bad over the last 4 or 5 years. The Rams DC, Raheem Morris, not necessarily a huge upgrade as far as defensive stats are concerned, but, that was a team that didn't necessarily have a ton of depth either. So, I think he could probably do some stuff here. The Dolphins OC, Frank Smith, they'll talk to him. They do have a lot of speed. So, I mean, that's something he's familiar with. The one that really was confusing for me, I hope this phone call doesn't actually happen, is they're gonna talk to the Giants OC Mike Kafka, which had a team that was bottom 5 in literally everything. So hopefully that's one that they just, the number falls off the desk or something. I wouldn't feel particularly great about that one. But and then of course, there's talk that they are gonna at least have a phone call with Mike Vrabel. And although they were kind of bottom 5 and everything as well, that wasn't necessarily his fault. So, that was one where they just didn't have much talent on the team, and it's hard to win without talent. But yeah, so I mean, and of course, I would imagine they're going to have a phone call with Jim Harbaugh as well.
So now, didn't Brian Daboll call the plays?
Uh, well,
Brian Daboll's an offensive mind, right? It's his offense, really.
So he ended up calling plays. He didn't start out calling plays.
So originally it was Kafka doing it, and
I believe so, yeah.
And then he said, "All right, sorry, you're not running this the way I want it run." And then he took it over, and they still didn't really do anything special.
Yeah. That's more or less the Giants. Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure that I got that right. And so, interestingly enough, I mean, obviously the Washington coach is no longer coaching over there. He's in Alabama. So
Yes.
I was surprised. I thought maybe like you would like that they could go another way, that they like to keep things closer to in-house, and that they may have a conversation with the Oregon coach.
Yeah.
I mean, I again, I don't know enough about the Pac-10, 12, 8, 6, whatever it is now, or non-existent anymore.
Yeah.
But Oregon was good.
They were. Their defense wasn't. And I mean, the offense wasn't necessarily the issue with the Seahawks. I mean, even with all the offensive line issues and everything, I mean, they still were around the top 10 in scoring points. So offense wasn't really the issue. The defense has been terrible. And, I think that is probably where they wouldn't necessarily go to the Pac-12 for a coach, just because inherently that conference doesn't have great defenses overall. They usually have 1 or 2 schools with a decent defense, and that's kind of it. Oregon has inherently not been that team, though. Generally, they're about their high-flying offense. And that hasn't really mattered what coach has been there. Like it's been a school that is, we're just going to outrun you. Like we're going to put up all the points, hope you can hang with us, and we're going to get a stop here and there. And that's probably the difference in the game.
Okay. And, I mean, I guess it worked for them most of the time, except against Washington twice.
Exactly. And Washington had a better defense. I mean, they weren't elite defense, but they had a solid defense.
Okay. All right. So, and it amazes me up to this point that, I mean, I guess it doesn't amaze me. I assume that everybody is still waiting to hire coaches, because of who's left in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of that is you can't really, you can't really talk to those guys. You can't see them in person for sure. And of course, for the Seahawks, you got John Schneider being moved into this position where he's the president of operations, and he's going to be making this hire. And this hire is going to kind of define him as a GM moving forward, right? So, up to this point, him and Pete Carroll, they've been tied together. And so if he comes out and he picks the wrong dude, all of a sudden there's going to be a lot of looks on him like, hey, Pete really was that guy and was running the show. And now that it's Schneider's, like, he's going to have to be real careful of his next hire, because it's either going to elevate him into one of the top tier GMs, not that he's not already, as far as like bringing talent in, but as far as hiring personnel and everything, or it's going to go wildly the other direction. So I don't see a lot of gray area. It's either going to be you continue the trend that the Seahawks are in and around the playoffs all the time, or you're returning them to their 90s status where they were non-existent for quite a while.
Okay. Well, I guess it'll be interesting to see all of that. But ultimately, uh, surprised that all with as many head coaching vacancies that there are, there's only so many coordinators. I mean, I guess there's 8 coordinators left, so you could really say that all 8 coordinators that are left in the playoffs could disappear and go somewhere else.
Sure.
I got to imagine, especially now, like I said, now that the Packers fired their defensive coordinator and he wasn't so bad. I mean, like I said, he wasn't the architect of our bend and break defense for the Eagles. So it's
True.
that's definitely a tough one to hear. And another name that I'm surprised has not gotten more attention is the Browns defensive coordinator. Now I know that he was a coach before, but he was a good defensive coordinator with the Eagles, won us the Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator. He's got himself a ring in that regard. He goes to another team after, he says, I'm gonna take a role being like an executive or whatever. Winds up becoming another defensive coordinator again and gets that team really minus the playoffs. The playoffs was a different animal because they got spanked,
Yes.
and they let up a lot of points. But ultimately, had probably the best defense in the NFL this year in the regular season.
Well, they were definitely starting off that way. The Ravens ended up with the best as far as points scored, but yeah, I think yardage total. I think you're right. But yeah, I mean, it was a great defense, especially when you figure that offense couldn't get out of their own way.
Yeah, so I'm surprised he's not getting more looks. And he only was with the Lions, right? He with the Lions and didn't do well. It wasn't like he had a second opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's funny. I actually haven't heard his name floated at all. So that is surprising.
And I guess it's just like, well, you don't want to. You saw that it failed before, and some people are better coordinators than head coaches, and I know that he's got a little bit of a rigid style, and maybe that's what gets around in the NFL. Like you're like, I don't know that I want that type of personality being the head of my team. And I assume in that along the same lines, that's the same, stigma with Eric Bieniemy. It's just like it's that maybe he's a little too abrasive.
Well,
To
and is
be,
that why Bill Belichick is stalling out a little bit with Atlanta?
well, I feel that Atlanta also put an offer in for Harbaugh. I mean, everybody's on the
Sure.
Harbaugh watch.
Well,
That's what's going on right now.
Everyone's going to take a flyer on him for sure. I mean, he's that, he's that desired thing to go after. So I think nobody's necessarily going to pull the trigger and pull themselves out of that sweepstakes. I don't know. I mean, he hasn't even confirmed that he's going to leave college. Like he may not. He may actually just sandbag all these teams.
Right. No, and I understand. Like why move? I can get $15 million a year and not have to do a damn thing really. I could have all these underlings cheat for me. I could sit back next year and make my 15 million and not even have to coach. I could
Exactly.
just sit back and just watch TV, and then the following year just come back, and whether they win. In fact, I hope they lose because then they're going to really make sure I'm back there and they want me back. You know what I mean? That's
Absolutely.
how I would look at that. I almost, but and I've been thinking a little bit outside the box, a little bit, and with everything that happened with the Bills. And I know that this doesn't happen very often. In fact, the last time I remember it happening was with John Gruden and trading for a coach.
Yeah.
Do you think anybody would? You think Atlanta would have any interest in trading a first round pick or a second round pick for the Bills coach? Would you offer a second round pick for him?
No, no, because there's too many coaches available. In a year where there weren't a lot of vacancies, right? I think maybe you do make a play like that, but there's good coaches available. So
You think? You think? Again, the problem is that you either win or you're fired.
sure,
And good coordinators don't make good head coaches, as we found out,
no, but you could go get Vrabel.
right? You
Vrabel
could get,
Vrabel run that offense that team no problem, right? Like he could elevate the defense that was already good, and then you have the ability to go draft a quarterback. I mean, they have the 8th pick. Like one of those quarterbacks would be available, right? And then you add a couple other pieces. That's a team that can win its division because it's not like that division's amazing. So based on the coaching that's available, a team like Atlanta, I don't think you have to give up draft picks to go get a coach when you have Vrabel. You could probably make a play for Pete Carroll, right? I mean, if he really is interested in coaching, that's another team that can win. It's
he's not an East Coast coach. As funny as that sounds, he's not an East Coast coach.
I agree, but he is a good coach, right? And you just need competent coach play there. Go get a a quarterback, somebody that's not going to, a coach that isn't going to mess up all the coaching decisions during a game, right? Because you're still going to have an OC and a DC. So, you're going to have that. It's going to be, they're not going to ruin clock management issues, or they're not going to call just dumb plays randomly, kind of forcing their influence on stuff. So, a guy like Pete Carroll could work there. Vrabel obviously would fit right in there. If there's, who knows what's going on with Belichick, but he could potentially work. I don't love how rigid he is, right? Like I wouldn't want him as a coach so much, but he is a good coach. So, they could win with that. Obviously, they took a flyer on Harbaugh. So with all of these names out there, I don't think you have to give up draft picks to go get a guy. Do I think that all these coordinators are going to hit? No, obviously not. A lot of them don't, but I would imagine one or two of them will.
Yes, I agree. I feel like the Eagles lost both of their coordinators. One hit, one didn't. So it was like, and he didn't hit as great as he would have or he liked to, because obviously there was another coordinator in his same division that wound up hitting a little bit better and winning their first playoff game. So there's a lot of different things to be said for that. It's interesting. Oh, and I want to go back just a half a second for what I just said and see, as I said it, I'm like, does that make any sense? But it might actually. He's not an East Coast coach.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Probably not. And the only reason I say that is your players are from everywhere, right? So it's not like it's a West Coast guy and all his players are from Jersey, right? Like it's going to be a melting pot of players. Pete Carroll is a motivational coach. Now, would it be different than the coaching they've had before? Of course. Is that necessarily bad? I don't think so. Sometimes you just need a shift within an organization. It's funny because as much as everybody loves Harbaugh and wants to bring him in, like how long does he stay with your organization? Because that dude has a personality that is grating as far as the internal workings. Can he coach? No question, right? He's been able to coach and win at every level of football. Does he find his way on the outside of an organization quicker than a lot of guys? Yeah, and that has nothing to do with his ability to coach games.
Right. No, and I understand that. Listen, some of the best coaches ever are asses.
Yeah.
And just and listen, it's one of those things that winning cures a lot of personality problems,
Yep.
you know. But when you start losing, yeah, they don't want to deal with that anymore. You know what I mean? And that's kind of, it happened with Chip Kelly. Chip
Yep.
Kelly was an asshole and he got kicked out of the organization because he wasn't winning anymore. When
Yep.
you're winning, it's okay. When you're losing, not okay. You
Yeah,
know,
no, there's definitely the chart, right? Like there's wins and pompous. And as long as you're winning, you can deal with a lot. But as soon as you're doing this, all of a sudden this end of the axis doesn't make sense anymore. You're like, you know what? You're just actually kind of a jerk, and I don't want to deal with you anymore. Like we
well,
can
and I
the guy that I like get us 4 wins.
exactly, and on top of that, I've had to deal with that in terms of the teams, with the Flyers. Flyers had the same problem with one of their own, really, with Ron Hextall. Ron Hextall was just a tyrant, from what I understood. Like he'd be watching somebody, like one of the players, eat something, like and it not be on that sheet that he created, and knock it out of, like, have it up to his mouth and him knock it out of their hands, like that type of guy.
That's a
Like,
good way to get punched in the face.
exactly, exactly. But if you're the GM, you're maybe not. But and not that Hextall wasn't a battler too, like he was a fighter, so he
Yep.
may have tried to initiate that, to try to initiate some of the fire, I guess. But ultimately, you know, he when you're not winning and you're not willing to change some of your philosophy a little bit, because the Flyers have been able to deal with a lot, and when they bring somebody back home, they want to keep them back home. But he was just like, yeah, you know what, you're going to die on that hill. See
Yep.
ya.
I
We
mean,
don't want
it
you
would
around
get
anymore.
guys fired up. I'm going to tell you, you knock my taco out of my hand, I'm lighting you up. We're fighting.
Right. That's it. Well, I mean, I guess it depends, because if you're not expecting to have the taco knocked out of your hands, the first thing is like, what the, and at that point, it's already over. You know what I mean? It's just like, you ain't supposed to be eating that. I'm the one in charge here, and I'm the one that tells you to do this, and I'm the one that tells you to do that. And you listen to what I say, and you got that already in your face. And then he walks away, and you're like, what? Like,
Yeah.
you just go to town about that, because there's not anything you're going to do at this point. You know what I mean? You're not going to go after him.
I
You
mean, you
just,
might. I don't know. Depends on how hungry you were. Hungry.
yeah. That could very well be, but I mean, but that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like that,
No, I
those
get
are, and I usually liken this to more hockey coaches, because hockey coaches, this happens a lot more frequently
sure.
than football coaches, or at least football coaches, you don't hear about it as often. They are quieter about that such.
I will give, just football organizations in general is they do a pretty decent job of holding things kind of close to the vest when it comes to turmoil within the building, which is kind of impressive. I mean, the things that get leaked really look more like they're deliberately leaked, but it's amazing they're able to hold it as close to the vest as they are based on the just sheer number of people involved.
It's interesting that you say that, because I found out something very interesting yesterday.
Okay.
Listening in the car, and I want to say it was before the show, and I didn't mention it yesterday, but I am going to mention it here, just because you're talking about how many people. The Eagles organization, they have more people on the staff of the team than any other organization in football.
Really?
That they have, it was figured out to be somewhere around, the Eagles employ 30 to 40 more people within their organization than the other organizations do.
That
I,
seems
I,
crazy.
I you know what? It does seem crazy. However, there's good sides and bad sides to that. The good side being, hey, listen, when you have a lot more brains and eyes in the room, you see a lot more.
Sure.
The bad side is that how many chiefs, how many chefs are in the pot? You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So if you're going to have that many more people, the hierarchy of how things go better be very solid.
Yes.
And you cannot say right now that the Eagles don't have that. They actually do
Yeah.
have a pretty solid base. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. Jeffrey Lurie is the owner, and Howie Roseman is the president and GM. He's not the
Sure.
president. The president of football operations is, somebody else. But he is the GM, and he is in charge of really running that team. And Howie Roseman is not an imposing guy, but from what I understand, he does command a tremendous amount of respect in that locker room. Now you're imagining like he's like this little small, and I'm not using this in a bad term, little small Jew guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who
Yeah.
was yelling and getting in the face of offensive linemen and defensive linemen. You know what I mean? So I mean, there
I
is
can see that
something to be
screaming
said
up
for
at
that.
a guy.
There is something to be said for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That that you have to have one certain level of balls. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it does. They don't have to be big balls, but they got to be there. You know what I mean? And you have to have that level of respect to be able to go do that to somebody without him going. You know what I mean?
Right? Dropping the hammer.
That's exactly like that's so ultimately. I mean, I get you're right. This is the GM. This is the real world. You don't have those types of things, but
True.
I mean, I have to imagine that their hierarchy. But when I heard that, I wasn't surprised
I
that
mean,
they
that
have more
seems
people.
like a huge number, though. That seems like if you're saying they employ more and it's like half a dozen or maybe 10, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, that's cool. But I mean, that is a significant amount of people.
So interestingly enough, 5 years ago they were having the problem with the injury bug,
Mhm.
and the year before that, when they brought in Chip Kelly did bring in the nutritionalists and stuff like that. So different than many other franchises, I won't say all, they have a nutritionalist staff
Yeah.
that employs anywhere between 6 and 12 people, I would assume.
Okay.
So you have that part. And then you have the senior advisors. They like to bring in football guys and pay football guys that are sitting around not doing much of anything else. They're not affable enough to be on TV. They're not, not with anybody. So you probably bring them in here. You get them an office, a little cubicle somewhere. Hey, watch some film for us. Find somebody. You have the Mountain West Conference. Let's see what you can find out over there. Let's see if there's anybody worthwhile who grades out well enough that might be able to, sneak into our ranks. And hey, we got a few guys that are going to be part of the UFL. The UFL, I know that the Eagles had two guys specifically at the USFL level
Yeah.
that would sit there and analyze all of the games from the USFL. So, I mean, I don't know if every team's got that. So there are different
Yeah.
things. I got to imagine that some of these guys are, you know, Jeffrey Lurie's nephew. You know what I mean? A
Sure.
little bit.
Sure.
Like I got to imagine some of these places are, but most of them are actually meant to do something very specific. And that if you're going to be an owner that likes to kind of micromanage things, because he is a producer of films of B films on top of that. These aren't even A films, they're B films that he's producing.
Yeah.
You have a lot that you have to manage and you have to micromanage them. You know what I mean? So you better have the right people in place to do so. So if you're going to micromanage on an efficient level, you need to have teams of people that answer to one guy and then that goes to answer to another guy who then answers to you.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I feel like that's kind of what he does. He micromanages, and because he micromanages his organization, he specifically has more people working for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not like it goes against cap, so I guess it doesn't matter. But it just a surprising amount more than other organizations, but
I
I
was
mean, if it
surprised too.
works, it
At
works.
30 to 40 people. I mean, and really, since he's owned this team, I mean, short of the Patriots,
Mhm.
there hasn't been a team really that has, except maybe Pittsburgh, that have had as much success as the Eagles have had.
Yeah,
It's like I believe that they are probably, you could probably put the 49ers maybe into that mix. You could probably, well, the 49ers were bad for the beginning portion of the 21st century. Um,
yeah,
so there are definitely certain. I think there's certain organizations that have had a lot more wins since January 1st, 2000 than you know than the other teams. And the Eagles are probably up on the top part of that list. Not saying that they're a better organization, not saying that they won all those Super Bowls or whatever, but when you win a lot of games all the time, the opportunity of you winning Super Bowls is going to become greater,
yeah,
especially over time.
yeah. No, I mean, there's definitely teams that are going to be up there. I mean, the Patriots are right up there. The Eagles have won a lot. Seattle, would be on towards the top of that list in that time frame. Um, it's weirdly, the Cowboys had some pretty very average teams through portion of that, so they probably wouldn't be near the top. But
So the Patriots are the best right now.
yes, yeah,
Okay, here actually it's interesting this list since the year 2000. It's Patriots, Steelers, Packers, Ravens, Colts, Eagles, Saints, Seahawks.
eh,
Hold on, let's go.
the Colts seems
Chiefs,
interesting.
then Cowboys.
Yeah,
Well, a lot of years at the beginning of the 2000s with Peyton.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Certainly,
So Peyton Manning
towards the
being
end of
that
the
guy.
2000s, right? Because '09 they won their Super Bowl. So I mean, that was a good Saints team. And yeah,
Right, no.
early on with yeah, um, yeah, Manning. So yeah,
Yeah, and
uh,
right now the Eagles are 2 games behind the Colts and 4 games behind the Ravens. And then there's a big jump. That's 266 for the Patriots, 245 for the Steelers, 240 for the Packers, 232, 230, 228,
yeah,
and then 220, 219, 217 goes all the way down to the Chiefs. You guys have 219, so you're
yeah,
1 game off of your one tie is what beat you up a little bit there. And then you have the Chiefs with 217, and then followed by the Cowboys in the 10 spot with
yeah.
210
But
wins. And this is
then if
all
you go
since
if you go,
2000.
yeah, I was gonna say if you go 2010 to now, that there's a lot of movement on that list.
I have to imagine, yeah. It's just because even uh, just the 14 years. I mean, the Eagles had some and then stunk for a little while, and then went to the Super Bowl and then stunk, and then went to the Super Bowl and you
Yep.
know still won 11 games after winning 10 this season. So I mean, it's interesting to kind of say, okay, this is where it's all at. This is how things have gone this so far this year. And the one thing I can say is that Belichick has won all those games. Those 266 games were all won by
Yes.
Belichick.
Yeah. How
You
crazy is
know,
that?
go figure. You know what I mean? Which shows that he's only 15 off the mark. I mean, that means he won only about 30 games with other teams.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't exactly great in other locations.
No, he was not. He was not. But still no Jay. I'm surprised. He's usually here by now, but he might be having a tough day at the office. So we're going to go and hit our We're at the top of the hour, so we're going to do our station identification. Maybe he'll be in here when we come back. Maybe he won't. But on the way back, we're going to start talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame. There were 3 guys that were selected to make it. There were a few guys that were very, very close but didn't. And we will talk about that as we come back for the second hour of Coast to Coast. I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face.
Oh, I'm from Brooklyn.
Hey, get us any.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or a Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
And welcome back to the second hour of Coast to Coast. Still no McLovin, but that's okay. We can talk about baseball anyways. Before we get into that, there was some action this week, especially one that happened with the Phillies. Rhys Hoskins agrees to a 2-year, $34 million deal with an opt-out in the first year for Rhys. Actually, I don't know that it's a team opt-out. I think I want to say it is. The deal contains an opt-out after the first season, but it doesn't say who's the opt. 30 years old.
A lot of times, if it just leaves it that way, it means both of them have the option.
Right. I can believe that. Did pretty well with the Phillies. He was very streaky. He was the first baseman. Had a lot to do with them going on the run to the World Series. His home run was sort of a rallying cry and got him out of that slump in a big way to be able to get them past the Padres at that point, or really past the Braves and then the Padres and such, because he was on a bad slump. And then he hit that home run and had that bat spike that really energized the team a little bit more. I mean, it was a very interesting, magical run, and he was a big part of it. And then, of course, the following year, he gets the ACL tear in the preseason, and unfortunately isn't able to. He tried to make it back. They said it was possible he could have been back for the World Series. I looked at that as a bad situation. Like, yeah, you can't have him come back for the World Series. This isn't, I understand that he may have meant something, but the spark that you think you're going to get from him isn't going to come from him. There's no way he's going to go up to the plate and in his first at bat hit a home run and it just be like last year where all of a sudden things are going to be back to normal. I just didn't believe that that was going to be the case. So, but and since Bryce Harper is like, hey, I'm your first baseman. Thank you very much. No need for me to throw the ball out there in right field anymore. My arm feels good. I can throw it home. I can throw it back to the pitcher just fine. I'm not going to throw it far anymore. Thank you. And so ultimately that really did, spell the end for Reese here. And I wish him the best. Obviously he was a player here for a long time. Um, and ultimately, I'm sure at some point he will go into the Phillies Hall of Fame as one of, he was a liked player here. So I got to imagine at some point he will be back with this organization. But I do wish him the best with the Brewers, for the upcoming year. That being said, of course, the first story that I saw today was the Hall of Fame remains too exclusive, but that might be changing. That's the headline to the story. And I tell you that they were saying, okay, that you have to have 75% of the votes for these people. That's how you get in.
Yep.
And the three guys that I got in, Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, and Joe Mauer. Now, what was it I saw? That all three of those were nobody was a first ballot, right? That was what I saw there, right? Oh no, Adrian Beltre was a
I was
first
going to say
ballot.
Beltre was. Yeah.
And so was Joe Mauer.
Oh, okay.
Which was surprised. I don't remember. And Todd Helton was on the ballot for the sixth time. I don't even know. Like, he reached Mauer beat the threshold by 4 votes. Former closer Billy Wagner fell short by 5 votes. So, but Beltre, I could see being like first ballot. I don't know about that, but I guess when you have a weak class,
I mean, he had a pretty impressive career.
No, and I get that, but Joe Mauer, he's had a couple of Gold Gloves. I mean, I guess he was a catcher, a good catcher and all. His name doesn't stick out to me at all.
No.
To be a first ballot Hall of Famer?
No, I'm with you there.
He's got 143, 306 batting average, 143 home runs, 1,018 runs scored, and 923 RBIs. 15 years. Not bad.
Yeah.
He had 3 batting titles and 5 Silver Sluggers. And 3 Gold Gloves. And 6 All-Star games. 15 years, 6 All-Star games, 3 Golden Gloves, 5 Silver Sluggers, 3 batting titles.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still think I've never even heard this name before. So, I mean, it just shows that I don't spend a lot of time watching Twins baseball.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing, right? Like it's that is the one thing that's tough with baseball, unless you are really watching an insane amount of baseball. Some of these players you're only going to see once or twice in a given season. Like I'm familiar with Beltre just because he played for the Mariners, right? And obviously he had a great career, right? He won like 5 Gold Gloves. He had like 5 or 6 Silver Sluggers. I mean, he was a great player, and he also played forever, right? He played for 20 plus years or something. But I got to see him here in Seattle, so I'm more familiar with him than I would be, other players because it's on the team you like. Because to your point, I don't follow a lot of Twins baseball or Brewers or it's just there's too many games. There's too many games to follow that many.
Right. So, big surprise on the last year. He's eligible for the ballot. Gary Sheffield does not make it. only winds up with 64% of the vote.
Wow.
And, you know, again, I don't understand this whole you only get 10 years, so you got to wait 5 years, then you only get 10 years to have your window, and that's that.
Yeah.
Interesting to me. It's just weird how they do it.
I wonder if they're gonna. I wonder if they're gonna do something similar to football, where now they have like a classic edition, right? Because I mean that's something newer to the NFL, right? They started doing that a few years ago. I could kind of see MLB adopting that at some point.
Well, I agree with that whole thought process. However, first off, I'm not a fan of the Hall of Fame. Not a fan of the Baseball Hall of Fame. I feel that this is the Hall of somewhat good. And again, this Joe Mauer is one of the reasons why I kind of think that until
because he's a first ballot and somehow Sheffield doesn't get in.
Right. And just like I'm like I know Sheffield. I mean, I was a Philly fan, so I mean, Gary Sheffield, but ultimately he was one of the elite names when he played.
No doubt.
Gary Sheffield was somebody that you thought of all the time. And the fact that he didn't make it into the Hall of Fame, okay, like, could we comparably put all of his stats next to Joe Mauer and Joe Mauer win? Maybe.
Well, the thing that's funny is if you put it next to Beltray, they're very similar.
Right. And Beltray gets in because he's. So it really does upset me. There he is. We were wondering if he was even going to show up today.
Oh, no, I'll always show up.
So we're talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame, or the Hall of Somewhat Good, and how, in your words, tell me who Joe Mauer is.
You know what? I was actually going to go research him when I saw that. I kid you not. No, seriously. I was like, nah, I'm going to research that guy.
We're all on the same
boat. All right. In your words, who's Gary Sheffield?
I know Gary Sheffield. God, I think he played for them. He was an outfielder. He had a great bat. I know he had a great bat. And I believe he played for Chicago Cubs. I think. I might be wrong.
Atlanta Braves.
I know different. I know the guy. I just don't know his career all that well. I'm not like,
He played
understood. But he is his. I remember him mostly with the Braves. He may have played with the Cubs for some time, but I remember him mostly with.
I know who Gary Sheffield is. I just don't know his career like that. Like I wasn't a big follower.
So everything all right over there?
Right?
Damn,
what broke?
Oh no, that's dog chases cat. So
okay,
it's like
understood.
Bo, you gotta be. It's like survival of the fittest in my house. If you can't fight, you're gonna die. So
that was the cat doing a burnout around the couch. I got you.
Hey, listen, you have no idea, man. This cat, literally, I'm surprised he's not dead yet. It's amazing. But anywho, yeah. But anyhow, yeah, I don't know his career like you guys probably do. Pags, you probably know a little better than I do.
I'll be honest with you. I asked you purposely to see if you knew more about him than I did, because I have no idea who this guy is. No clue.
Well, I know Gary Sheffield. Yeah.
No, he's talking.
But no, Gary Sheffield. I'm talking about Joe Mauer.
Oh,
no clue who Joe Mauer was.
No, I want to say for some reason the Twins. When I heard Joe Mauer, the Twins pops in my brain. I don't know why.
Well, that's because he played for the Twins. Go figure.
There you go. Okay. Again, I couldn't tell you a damn thing about the guy. For some reason, I think I probably have seen his name in a Twins uniform, and it just stuck there. But in terms of like detailed information, well, let's put it away. I know we were leading with this. Why is he in the Hall when damn near nobody knows a damn thing about the guy?
Well, especially when his numbers don't really seem like they're as good as Sheffield's, and Sheffield has managed to extinguish his ability to get in, and somehow the other guy is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Right. Like Adrian Beltre, I understand. Yes.
Now, Adrian,
That's a name everybody knows. Everybody knows Adrian
Absolutely.
Beltre. He that he commanded the respect of everybody when he was up at the plate because that guy could hit that ball country mile. Todd Helton, same type of situation. When you think of the Rockies, you think of Todd Helton and him hitting home runs and stuff like that. Also, great player. Took him 6 times to get over the threshold, but got over the threshold. Now, Billy Wagner, interestingly enough, who missed it by 5 votes, got 74% of the vote, is only got 1 more year.
And that's a damn shame. If he doesn't make it in, I don't know. If he doesn't make it, I'll be pissed. I've watched that guy. Obviously, he's with Houston. I've watched him many a times with Houston. It is just.
I know the year that he was with the Phillies, there were 23 pitches that went over 100 miles per hour, and he owned 21 of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the only thing I could say about that. That year, and we're talking a few years back now. Obviously, we're talking probably 16, 17 years back now, where guys weren't throwing 100 miles an hour. They were only throwing in the upper 90s. 23 pitches all season long went over 100 miles an hour, and he threw 21 of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the other 2 guys got lucky one time and threw it at 100 miles an hour. So he's on his 9th time.
Is he not in the Hall of Fame?
Billy Wagner?
No, I'm sorry. I was going back to. I was still stuck on the Sheffield thing with Mal. Is Sheffield? He's in the Hall of Fame, correct?
No.
In fact,
I don't understand. How do you have a 292 career average and over 500 home runs and not in the Hall of Fame?
Well, I mean, so here's another one that was on this list.
And I'm sorry, Pax. I didn't mean to go left on you. I was just still stuck on the Sheffield thing.
So, but similar to Sheffield in this way is somehow Omar Vizquel hasn't got in, right? This is his 7th year. Dude has won 11 Gold Gloves, right? Second most in shortstops all time.
Yeah,
he's in, and he was a great batter. Right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it some of it doesn't make sense. Like if you look at stats, Sheffield should be in, Vizquel should be in. I mean, especially when their stats are better than the guys that are in. Like some of these things don't make sense. Like they need to watch Sesame Street again to figure out which numbers are bigger and why they're better.
I mean, what's the criteria exactly to be a voter of the Hall of Fame again? Is it just to be a sports writer or of a big name publication or something? Is that primarily what
you have to be a baseball writer for, I believe, 5 years covering a team, like a beat writer for 5 years.
Right.
And then also still be in the industry. I believe that's how that works. I could be off.
Sound like crazy qualifications.
No, it's like you have to be the beat writer of a team and like, because there's like, I think there's like 360 votes.
Okay.
And you have to have 75%. So, and you could pick anybody on the list that you want to pick. Like, for instance, you say Omar Vizquel is his 7th year trying. He only got 17.7% of the votes.
Yeah.
Jay Sutley on his first year got 28.8% of the votes. Actually, that's not a bad showing in your first year. That actually, by doing that in your first year, it's determined that you will make the Hall of Fame sometime soon. You know what I mean? That's how they garner that. For instance, Alex Rodriguez in his 3rd year got 35% of the votes. That actually is trending that he will not make it. Now, how ridiculous is that?
No. It makes sense that he won't because it's votes, not based on career. And, him being kind of a douche weighs in on it, right? Because, again, it's not all stats.
Hey, just like Schilling. Schilling ain't going to make it because he 100%. Was an ass.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. The more I look at Wagner, he's one of only 8 relief pitchers with 400 saves, but he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Well, it looks like as of right now, where he's at, he would trend next year to make it.
I hope he makes it. I really do, because I felt like that guy, he earns it. And it's hard because, like a relief pitcher, he's more of a closer. I don't think they get the credibility or the accolades like other people get, right? Because they're only in there one inning, they have one job, 3 outs, get us off the field, let's go. So it's not like he's out there for like 8-9 hours. It's like one statistical category, right? And so I feel like it's harder, and they don't get as much recognition as what they should get, unless your name's Mario Rivera or something, and then of course whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be next level, all time dominant.
All right, so I am finding out what are the qualifications. All right, so here it is. Yeah, that's part of this. Yes, you have to fog the mirror. All right, so the Baseball Writers Hall of Fame members earn a vote from its organization, which is independent of the Hall of Fame, by maintaining 10 consecutive years on a baseball beat. Those Hall of Fame eligible voters are required to complete a registration form and sign a code of conduct. Potential Hall of Fame voters must meet requirements as active members covering the game, with a 10-year grace period for those no longer active. So that means you do 10 years on a beat and you have 20 years to vote.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting.
Or you have 10 years to do it, after the fact. So
crazy.
Yeah, so it's
I don't like the 10 years allowed to vote. I think we need a fresh group of people in there, because I think you get the same results with the same damn 10 people.
Well, I mean,
so if your Hall of Fame is voted a certain kind of way for 10 years and you hate it, you're stuck with it for like 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, but having some of the older guys in there might actually help some of the people that are before the new writers still get in.
I mean, I understand your viewpoint.
But I mean, I guess the problem is again, it's a voting thing. It's not necessarily all stat driven. So it's who people liked. They had decent enough stats, and I mean, I guess that's any of them though. It's not just baseball. I mean, they're all kind of weird in that way.
So let me ask you this question: Manny Ramirez, Hall of Famer?
In my mind, yeah. I mean, he with that Boston team that did the big comeback, and he was a very essential part of that of that baseball team getting that World Series when they came back. Whether they're down 3-1, Manny played a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he probably did just enough.
Yeah,
he looks like he's trending. It's his 8th year, 32.5% of the vote, likely not to make it.
Yeah, see, I mean, it seems crazy.
Andrew Jones, interestingly enough, he's right behind Sheffield. He's got 61.6% of the votes. He's in his 7th year. It would trend that he would just miss if things go the way that they are continuing to go for him, that he would just miss by like the tune of like 6-7 votes. That being said, if he was to make it in and not Gary Sheffield, it would switch from the Hall of somewhat good to the Hall of eh.
Yeah,
because that would. Yeah, exactly. Because I fully believe that this. I feel personally that there is, that it's ridiculous. This is ridiculous. How they vote on these things and how they choose not to. Obviously, they can't vote for Barry Bonds anymore. He's not going to be in. Same thing with Mark McGwire or Sammy Sosa. Those guys aren't going to get in because of the steroids thing. And you know what? Those guys saved baseball.
No doubt.
Saved it.
No doubt.
Absolutely saved it. So to tell me this holier than thou crap from these writers who probably are doing lines of snow in the bathroom, telling me that we ain't going to vote these guys in because they cheated. Get the hell out of here. You know what I mean? These writers suck. Completely suck. And I'm gonna and I feel this way about the Baseball Hall of Fame in general. This is a ridiculous organization. And until they make absolute changes then I don't care. It's just because you got plaques on the
Yeah.
wall doesn't mean anything to me. Doesn't mean anything to me whatsoever.
I did tell Frankie that. I said all of them should be allowed in baseball. Every last one of them. And it should be at the Roy at the Hall of Fame. They should say this, and it should literally to back to what you said. Steroids era that saved baseball. Here's the wing. Here's all the people.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not like.
And I do agree that it did save baseball. Because quite honestly, we were getting kind of bored with it until the big. Oh my God, who's going to break the single season home run record of Sammy Sosa versus Mark McGwire? And that's really what sparked it all.
Well,
I have all of the newspapers. I have the newspapers from the Philadelphia. He was a St. Louis Cardinal. He was a Chicago Cub.
Yeah.
I have the newspapers saved of the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Daily News from that era.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I even remember when Roger Ramirez's family and Mark McGwire hugged.
Yes.
As he's driving around in that big, nice, beautiful red Corvette, old school Corvette that they gave him. Remember that? There was like a 50s model Corvette. I was like, God, that car's beautiful.
It was a 62 Corvette, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was beautiful. I don't know the exact year. I just know the damn car was beautiful.
It was 62. It was a 62 because he hit 62 home runs.
Oh, it was just beautiful, though. And it kind of makes sense. It was just a beautiful car. I just remember the car. Oh, man.
And you remember when he hit that home run, he hit it up against Chicago.
Yeah.
It was against the Cubs. And Sosa came running in from the outfield. Like, I remember that.
Right.
Like it was yesterday. And the fact that these guys are not going to get in. Roger Clemens. I hated Roger Clemens at the plate. I'm going up against him. The first time I went to Old Yankee Stadium, I went there to go watch a Yankees-Red Sox game. It was one of the only times I've gone to baseball games a few times where there hasn't been a Philadelphia team. That was one of them. And it was his second time going for his 300th victory. And he lost. He lost that. But that's, the problem is that these guys were great players and saved the game. And because they decided
you're also looking at an era. You're like, okay, yeah, these hitters were juicing, but so were the pitchers, right? So I mean, it's not like they weren't blowing fastballs by him at 103. Like it was, you know what I mean? It's like these guys were juiced up too. So I mean, I feel like they should just have their own section, right? Like
I don't even believe that. I really don't believe that. I feel like, hey, listen, you decided, baseball had decided, hey, we're going to do drug tests and we're not going to test for these drugs. Guess what? That means they followed the rules. Yep. They followed the rules. The rules changed because they didn't like the unfair advantage. Hey, listen, everybody's got to do it. The problem is everybody could have done it, and everybody probably was doing it in baseball, but it was promoting a bad attitude amongst the kids.
And you know what's interesting to me though? A lot of people put all this ownership on the roids side of it, but people don't understand. You can do roids and still suck as a hitter. You can do roids and still suck as a pitcher because it only takes one bad location or, whatever, and the ball's going out the yard. Or maybe you hit the top of the ball and it doesn't go out. I mean, you still got to put bat on ball, or as a pitcher, you still got to put the ball in certain spots. And that still takes an art form. That still takes an art form that people don't understand.
If you're a pitcher and all of a sudden you can throw harder, but your location is bad, it just means it goes further into the
Exactly. That's my point. You hate Roger for doing roids, but the dude was still a damn good ass. I remember my dad, because he went to San Jacinto Junior College, was just literally like 2 streets down from where I grew up. And my dad went to San Jacinto Junior College, and he went to school with Roger, not Roger. He went in the same area where Roger was. And so we all knew Roger Clemens. He went to the University of Texas. And the guy was a good guy. I mean, but you're going to punish him and banish him because he did roids. Well, hell.
Well, and then there's some players that you
can. But we let Hunter Biden off of all this craziness that he's done in the White House.
Whoa. We're not getting political.
And I'm not getting
We're not
political.
going
I'm not trying to get
You are
political.
getting
I'm just
political.
saying.
We're not talking about that.
Yeah, we're not doing any of that. But
What are we trying to do? Because, and I'm not saying we're going to go that direction, but, but as a society, we put so much on that.
It'll make this comment section blow up with a bunch of dumb
Yeah, it
stuff.
probably will.
But no,
I'll get ratings through the roof. Pags will be a superstar.
All right, let him talk there.
Then you have those players you kind of wish would have had steroids, because like we had Jamie Moyer, right? And his fastball was like most guys' changeup. It was like 87, 88. His changeup was like 65 miles an hour, right? Some steroids might have punched that up a little bit. Wouldn't have been terrible, because his command was unreal. I mean, he played for 20 some years.
Hey, he helped us win a ring.
Yeah, I mean,
all us Jamie stick together.
Hey, he was a hell of a baseball player. It was just funny because he'd come in, he'd start pitching, and you're just like, man, that is the slowest fastball I've ever seen in my life.
Well, think of Phil Niekro. He was the guy. And don't tell me I don't even know. Is Phil Niekro in the Hall of Fame? I feel like he should be in the Hall of Fame.
I remember him when he played with the Astros. He played the Astros for a little while.
Yeah, I mean,
that's how I remember Phil Niekro.
But it's just literally he was he was throwing the knuckleball and the spitball. I mean, he was cheating every which way he could all the time. That's what baseball players do. They've cheated all the time. Houston won a World Series cheating. Don't take my shirt off because I got the sticker right here. Yep. Let's do that.
Hey, people don't even know that. What's his name out there? What was the Yankees pitcher just recently that got blown out because he was putting stuff on his ball off of the side of his pants? Domingo Herman. Yeah. And even what's his face over with the Mets? Scherzer, was it Scherzer that did it? One of them was doing. I think they got banned for a little while. Got like a 10-game suspension. Yeah. Come on.
Well, no. Scherzer did it, and he was saying it's only rosin, it's only water and rosin.
Yeah, whatever. I'm pretty sure.
But ultimately, if you take, interestingly enough, if you take a wet nap, like a wet nap that you'd get at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yep.
And you wipe your hands with that wet nap, and then you go to get rosin, that rosin will become like glue.
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
Just a wet nap. It's
the paste.
Alcohol and the rosin will create that, making it like glue. And don't you think that they're doing that all the friggin' time? Because also, the good thing about that is that when you're in and you go ahead, you can wipe it right on your glove, and it'll come right off, and the leather will actually help it dissolve.
Yeah.
Ain't that some crazy? By the way, Phil Niekro, 1997 1997, Niekro was inducted.
Well,
into the Hall of Fame.
97.
That's why you saw the rotation speed of pitches go way up.
Yeah.
As they found the ball a little stickier. And
that's getting crazy.
All of a sudden, those sliders were no joke. Like they had travel for days.
Started out as his hip and wound up 4 feet to the left.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, but yes, Phil Niekro was a cheater. He was an absolute cheater.
Yeah.
But he made it in. So I don't want to hear about the fact that these guys cheated or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? They all deserve to be in. They don't deserve asterisks either. They are part of baseball. They weren't breaking the rules then just because baseball decided not to test for it. That they started to test. And when they started to test for all that stuff, they didn't know enough about it. So they have to continually ban different benzotestosterone and Trebolone and all those other things. They had no idea that if you put on this cream, this is like a steroid right here, and they can't figure it out from that it doesn't wind up, those chemicals that they are banning are not in the system. So
I look at it this way. If you're not going to vacate rings for teams that were cheating, why would you hold anyone out of the Hall of Fame?
Right. That's exactly correct. Like
I'm right there with you.
One thing that I understand, take Pete Rose out of the mix. Pete Rose is the one guy who I know and believe that he's going to get in the Hall of Fame once he's dead. But
Yeah,
after that,
yeah. Mm,
after
mm.
that, everybody else deserves to be in because they saved baseball. After that second strike, nobody was going. Nobody was going.
They were ghost towns.
Yeah, and that's all of a sudden they used to give out. We used to buy a package of hot dogs, and they would give you 2 free tickets with the hot dogs.
Yep.
I would go there literally, like I just got out of the service. I would go to games and bring my shoes and a shoe shine kit because I just got out of the service, and I'd shine my shoes in a whole section by myself watching the game.
Yeah. You could buy 10 game blocks for $10.
Yes.
Ain't
3
that
hours.
crazy? I remember
3
those
hours a game.
days. Please, I do.
So now it's impossible to do. Now you can't
No.
even do that.
Nowadays, you gotta give about 4 quarts of blood. That's just for the nosebleeds.
Yeah, exactly. That's for
Unless you're an A's fan.
with a balcony that overlooks the stadium.
So I thought last year when what's his face made it, I'm like, oh my, yeah, Scott Rowland. I'm like, are you kidding me? He wasn't even the best third baseman of his era. That he was just okay. He wasn't great. He had a little bit of a name. he was okay. He was a good Philly. He was an okay Cardinal, and then he bounced around for the last part of his career and didn't do anything spectacular. And the fact that he was a first ballot Hall of Famer or like maybe a second ballot Hall of Famer was ludicrous to me.
Yeah.
Ludicrous.
Right.
I feel like the best thing that he did as a baseball guy in the eyes of the writers was leave Philadelphia. I don't want to play here. I want to go play in baseball heaven. So, which everybody thinks that's what St. Louis is, but it ain't. I'll tell you. But neither here nor there. Like I said, I'm very opinionated about the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I fully expect that they are going to take what I say and not care at all.
That is a safe bet. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look how old baseball is. I'm sure you're not the only one, Pags, that's been around criticizing it. I mean, it's been around for over a century, and yet it really kind of still stays the same.
I mean, to be fair, if you watch the intro to this show,
yeah,
the guys that are in control of baseball are destined to ruin it or trying to ruin
it. That's I love that line. I love that line. And that was by a baseball writer.
Yeah.
The guys that are in charge of baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, and that is a very true statement. And this is the reason why the Baseball Hall of Fame, like the Football Hall of Fame, has nothing to do with the NFL.
Yeah.
They work hand in hand, kind of, but they have nothing to do with the NFL. The more that the NFL, and that was the reason why what's his face left as president of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That monster. I mean, he wasn't a monster. He was like the sweetest guy in the world, but he was like 6'8". He was bigger than every guy he went up to go talk to. You know what I mean? He's like, hey, we're going to be giving you a gold jacket because you're going to be in the Hall of Fame, and I tower over you. You know what I mean?
Good job, buddy.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like they did a great job. And the reason why he left is because the NFL wanted more control over what was happening with the Hall of Fame. And he didn't want to give up that control. He's like, this is how it's been done all our lives. All our lives, this is how it's done. You don't get to control this. This is not for you to control.
Right.
If you control it, then all of a sudden the narrative changes. That's what they did. Baseball controls the Baseball Hall of Fame. That's the problem. So
that is a problem because there really should be a separate entity from it.
If I ever have enough money, which may only be like a few $100s, I'm going to buy a building and put my own plaques up on the wall. of all the people that I think should be in the Hall of Fame and be like, I'll call this is the real Hall of Fame.
That's right. It's the purple jacket. It's the Purple Heart of awards.
He said, "Hey, facts and our mantra is no baseball execs allowed."
Exactly. The only good that gets the vote is me. I'm the only one that cares.
All of a sudden, he's like, McLovin, who's your favorite? Yeah, he didn't make it.
Yeah, we don't care. Don't care.
So, yes, Chase Utley did do pretty good. Chase Utley does look like he would trend in to the Baseball Hall of Fame from his first vote. So, usually they say if you get above 20% on your first vote, it's likely that you will be into the Hall of Fame. Usually by year 6 is when you'll make it there. That's kind of exactly how Helton made it. It's year 6, year 7 is right around that time where you're going to make it if you start off with about 25% of the vote or more. So, yeah. So that's what I said. I'm going to leave the rest of that slide. It was just I had to get that off my chest. And congratulations to those 3 guys, 2 that I know and the one that I didn't. Obviously, was it Robert that said it? Who was the one that said it? That Joe said that Joe Mauer was a hell of a catcher for the Twins. So is Pudge Rodriguez a hell of a catcher for what was it? The Rangers, and they never won. So. I guess the Twins did win a ring, didn't they? They did win a championship, so he might have had a championship with them. But neither here nor there. Just because he was a hell of a catcher doesn't mean that he's Hall of Fame worthy. And usually, thank you, the Tigers. And that being said, the fact that I never heard of him makes me believe even more so that he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. So. I'm going to switch it up again. We're going to go from Hall of Fame to something that is happening in the NBA that hasn't happened for quite some time. The Portland Trail Blazers are filing a protest with the NBA head office to challenge Tuesday's 111-109 loss to Oklahoma City. And Portland believes that head coach Chauncey Billups was missed him calling a timeout before what was considered a double dribble. And in the process of that, because he didn't have the timeout called, if he called the timeout, the double dribble would have never have happened.
Yep.
And ultimately, he wound up getting kicked out of this game. And what tied the game up was the foul shots from the technicals.
Yep.
So they are protesting this. It's been a long time since there's been somebody protesting.
Yeah, you're not going to win. They're not going to nothing's going to come from that. When you watch the video, it definitely looks like he was trying to call the timeout. So, I mean, he's not wrong, but nothing's going to happen.
I don't know that any protest in any sport has ever really come to fruition, has it? When they protest, even the NFL has protested games, and I don't think anything ever really.
Not after the
fight. I think once that game is called, done, and over, it's just done, no matter what.
Yeah, it's a wrap.
Which I think that's the way it should be. I mean, there is still going to be a little human error in everything. It is what it is.
Well, on the plus side, there's a lot of games in basketball. You can overcome a loss. If it's in football, it carries a little more weight, right? Each game matters more. But, when you have 82 games, like if you miss a game, you got
Yeah, I just don't know if you want to start a trend where you start reversing wins and losses, because then I just think that opens up a Pandora's box that nobody really wants to deal with.
No, and it's never going to happen anyway, because there's no way to guarantee that you win that game. There's no way to get the 20 seconds or whatever it was that was left back. Maybe you turn the ball over anyway, and they still go down and score. I mean,
exactly.
So there's really no way to know, and that's why it'll never get overturned, because just because you kept the ball doesn't mean you still win.
I mean, what would be the most fair scenario in that? Maybe put 20 seconds on the clock. You say, okay, play, but nobody's going to do that.
Nobody's
going to let you have 28 more seconds. I mean,
nobody's bringing both their teams together.
Exactly. So there's no real way you could ever write that anyways. That's what I'm getting at. There's no way you could ever write that. So just let it be, and hey, this is what it is.
They're going to be like, you know what? We messed up. We're going to do rock, paper, scissors, and whoever wins that wins this game. No, I mean it is what it is. Was it called wrong? Sure. Did they miss a call? Sure. It happens in every sport.
Right.
It's just part of it. So I don't. They're never going to overturn a win. They're never going to vacate, anything like that on the stat sheet. Like did they miss something? Absolutely. And all that's going to happen is going to be like, oh, sorry, we missed it. And you're going to move on with your life. Just what it is. And if that,
I think it could be beneficial is not necessarily determine a win or a loss, but I think from a league perspective, from improving a referee perspective, I think teams should report it, and it should be logged in categories. Okay, this is where how many, blown calls were made, and then categorize it. That way, at the end of the season, they can say, okay, all these were blown calls. These are the categories. And maybe they go back and do more, what do you call it? Like retraining the refs to look out for, make sure they're checking these things. You know what I mean? Like a lessons learned at the end of the season, right? So that we can improve upon it next season,
They should do something like that. I'm with you there. And to Rob's point here, man, would that mess up Vegas? If they
jeez Louise.
If they paid
out. Could you imagine that? Man.
Vegas would be suing the league.
Well, so there were some protests as I'm looking at this. A couple in baseball that have occurred that were upheld, and actually the largest one being the pine tar, the George Brett pine tar situation. That was one of the ones that was one of the bigger ones. Everything else has been. They had one in the NBA in 1971. That was something that occurred, but since then, you haven't really seen many. However, in this case, if by chance they were to determine that the protest should be upheld, they would go back and play the 15.9 seconds.
Interesting. So
that is interesting.
So that I can't imagine they're doing that. But what, they would just wait till the next time they met during the season, probably.
I don't know that answer, but possibly. There was the same thing like the last time an actual protest of a loss got overturned for real. Happened in 2008, I think it was, between it was the Braves and the Pirates. No, it was the Cardinals and the Pirates, and they called the game early after a couple of small rain delays, and the Pirates got the loss, and they protested saying the rain delays weren't long enough, and in essence, they wound up playing the remaining part of that game.
Wow.
Still lost the game.
Sure.
Still lost the game, but
they
had the opportunity to play it. So in this case here, it would only be the 15.9 seconds. They would not reschedule the entire game.
I'm really more or less believing what that guy said, what Bo said. I think because of the financial impact with Vegas and things like that, that there's just no way in hell.
Well, I mean, if they got to go back and play the last 15 seconds, then I mean, I guess if that's part of the rule book, then cool. I can't imagine them flying the team all the way out there to play 15 seconds.
Unless they had a double hitter. Like if they had like another game that they played again in the season, they could play the last 15 seconds at the beginning and then start the game. I could see that.
That would make sense. But imagine if it was later in the year and they just didn't play them again. Like you'd literally have to fly them out for that 15 seconds. I think if you were going to finish it off, though, you'd wait till the end of the game you just played in a doubleheader to do the 15 seconds, since it was the end of the game. Everybody's gassed. gives you the most similar.
No.
I think that'd be hilarious.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think that you should do it. You would do it in the very beginning, and that's that. It's like it is what it is.
Get it out of the way.
Yeah, just get it done so that game could be done, and then you could either win or lose both games that day.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
But it's been a long time since there has been a game that has been challenged, to the NBA.
I'm going to go with no ties, Rob. I hate ties. I don't care what sport it is. No ties. As a
I
player,
agree with that.
I don't want a tie. I'd rather lose than tie. Ties make me mad.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't soccer.
Exactly.
So,
and why I don't watch soccer. Flopping and ties. Like, what are we doing?
Exactly. That's exactly. That magic spray does some good stuff, though. I mean, that is some interesting stuff that's happening over there. One more thing I want to talk about as we're getting ready to close up here. That was a big story, and it actually has to do with with the Flyers. But Carter Hart was granted an indefinite leave of absence due to for personal reasons. Now, the Flyers said that they have nothing to talk about when it comes to this. However, this has been on the in the background that everybody's known about, and was rumored to be part of the reason why they were considering trading Carter Hart early before the season even began. But 5 members of Team Canada's 2018 World Juniors team is told to surrender to police.
Whoa.
And there is another NHL player who was also granted this indefinite leave of absence, and dealing with a physical assault, a sexual assault charge by someone.
Yeah, I didn't hear about this.
Wow.
Yeah, this was a big thing that I heard in the off season, and come to find out that it did have some validity to it, at least to the fact that there was a party, there was something that occurred, that there was somebody crying about it. Now, when I say crying, I don't mean I don't mean that in a bad way. If this person was, done as bad as they were, then absolutely they deserve to get everybody involved with this. Again, but that's what I had heard, that there was something that was happening, and ultimately this was going to come to fruition during the year. And here it is. Now it's here. And
Wow.
Philadelphia's goalie Carter Hart is one of the ones that are in part of this, because everybody else was also given the same. Yeah, the other NHL player was given the same, and I believe the other ones are either WHA or ECHL or whatever it is. They're in minor league hockey's situations, but
crazy.
It's a big deal, and it's going to come around, and these guys are going to get tried for this. So yeah, it says that there's only 5 members of Team Canada. I heard that it was as many as 8 to 10. But I wasn't there. I'm not part of the charges. I'm reading the report right here, by Hockey Canada, that 5 members of Canada's 2018 World Junior team told to surrender to London police.
Wow.
And that's London, Canada, not London.
Yeah.
England. So it's interesting if whatever comes from this, but this has been going on for like 4 years, and she finally came and told everybody about it, and they've done their research, and they're saying, okay, there's some validity to this.
Crazy it took 4 years to get there, though. I mean, that's a long time.
Well, I mean, it's got to be a pretty extensive,
I mean, I agree. Yeah.
Process. So, I mean, because a lot of how those things start is, my word against yours kind of thing. So, I mean,
right. That's true. That's true. It is, in hockey is not one of those sports where you really hear a lot of this kind of stuff. I mean, they're usually a fairly clean sport. You don't hear a lot of, usually it's NFL or NBA or whatever, but very rarely. I mean, this is the first time I think I've ever heard anything in terms of hockey.
So, and here's maybe the reason why it took so long. Against the backdrop of building public pressure, London police in July reopened their investigation into the case in July of 2022, which is when I heard about this. It was like, so I heard about this in July of 2023. So that's when I started to hear about all of this. After initially closing it without laying charges in February 2019.
Oh, okay. Well, it actually makes sense why I didn't hear about this then, because I was still living in Mexico at the time. Not a lot of hockey down there.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And they're saying that others may be involved in this, but it is, it's a 94-page summary.
Wow,
that's a lot of pages.
That is a lot of pages. That's a really extensive amount of research.
Yeah.
That's almost like a congressional hearing document.
Right.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, the story that I heard is pretty graphic, so I can't really express it here. But that it was, if it is true, then these guys deserve, unfortunately, everything that they get. So, and I got to imagine that some of this was true. That some guys are going to get, maybe absolved of this. Other guys are going to fry for this, because I think that there was, every story has got the in-between lines.
Of course.
And I think something that started as innocuous became something fallacious. So,
yeah.
Is that a real word, fallacious? Did I use that word properly in a sentence? Like,
I know facetious. I don't know if the word used to was kind of, I don't know. What how did you say it again?
Malicious.
Oh, malicious. Yeah, that sounds like a real word to me.
So at least to be to be vilified, I guess, or whatever, what have you. So either way, maybe it's a word, maybe it's not. It sounded good to me. That being said, using my vocabulary here, that's why I'm going for my scholarship. But yeah, there's going to be a lot more that comes out about this. Obviously, this is going to be a tough one for those guys to get over it, and I wish everybody the best in this, and that it gets resolved quickly and properly, so that justice gets served the way it's supposed to.
Maliciously.
Well, no, not maliciously. So, anyways, that being said, we are at the top of the hour. So we got Bo about to do some picks. So stay tuned.
No, not today. Not today. That's tomorrow and Friday. Those days. Today I have the Wednesday wrap up. That's actually going to be at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock right here on Roku.
Okay, so 1 o'clock your time, which means that you got 2 more hours to go.
Yes, 1 o'clock my time.
Yeah, 3 o'clock our time, so you have another couple hours before that happens. That being said, everybody, thank you for all of the different comments and hanging with us today. We will be back tomorrow, where we're going to be talking, probably go back to a little bit more football, see if there's anything happening on the coach front. Maybe Jay McLovin will show up a little bit on time, and we can start talking about these games that are going to happen on Sunday. I tell you, since the Cowboys have been out of it, it's just been hard to get him to show up at a normal time. So,
I mean,
if the Cowboys are in it, if the Cowboys were in it, he'd be right there with us, right at the very beginning of the show, and being like, "How about them Cowboys? Woohoo! Yeah!"
I'm surprised he shows up on time at all. I mean, when's the last time the Cowboys have really been in it? Thanks for stopping by, everybody.
It's a lot of therapy. It's a lot of therapy.
But everybody, thank you very much, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.